Okay, Namo Ramana, everybody.
Namo Ramana Kamesha.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shiramanaya. Prostrations to Bhagavan, who shines as the Self in all beings. We start today's satsang with a prayer. Dakshinamurti Sarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Ramanacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Shuklam Baradharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Angikam Bhuvanam Yasya Vachikam Sarvavangmayam Aharyam Chandrataradi Tam Namah Satvikam Shivam. Namo Ramana. We will now have the chanting of Muktaka trayam by Sri Nandakumarji.
Ekam aksharam hribi nirantaram bhavam sati swayam likyate katam hridaya kuhara madhye kevalam brahmamatram yaham aham iti sakshat atmarupena bhati hridi vishamanasa svam chinvata majjata pavana chalana rodha atmanishto bhavatvam deham brahmayavat jadatmakam aham buddhirna tasyastyato naham tattata bhavashukti samaye siddhatma sadbhav koham pavayuta kuto varadhiye drishtatmanishtatmana soham spurtitaya arunachala shivaha purno vibhati swayam soham spurtitaya अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं। नमो रमण।
Namo Ramana. We will now have the chanting of Upadesa Saram by Uma and Srimati Ashwini Balaji.
Namo Ramana. Idamaham padavikyamannvaham ahamilinake pyalaya sattaya vigrahendriya pranaditama nahamekasattajjadam hyasat satvabhasika chitvavetara sattaya hi chet chittaya hyaham ईश जीवयोर्वेषधीभिदा सत्स्वभावतो वस्तु केवलम् वेषहानत स्वात्मदर्शनम् ईशदर्शनम् स्वात्मरूपत आत्मसंस्थिति स्वात्मदर्शनम् आत्मनिर्द्वयादात्मनिष्ठता ज्ञानवर्जिता अज्ञानहीन चेत् ज्ञानमस्ति किं ज्ञातुमन्तरम् किं स्वरूपम् इत्यात्मदर्शने अव्यया भवा आपूर्णचित्सुखम् बन्धमुक्त्यतीतं परं सुखम् विन्दति जीवस्तु दैविक अहमपेतकं निजविभानकं महदिदं तपो रमणवागियम्। Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We will now have 3 songs from the Ramananjali Sangeetam. First one will be presented by Srimati V. Radha. Second song will be presented by Savitri Krishnan and Jaisriram Krishnan. The third song will be presented by Revathi Shankar.
Namo Ramana to all. Today I will be singing a song written by Sri Suddhananda Bharati. Ramana, 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 Ramana. परने गुहने वरने परिपूरणने वरुवाय परने गुहने वरने परिपूरणने वरुवाय विरमत्तुरिय पेरुविन् विरिवे पिरवानिलये पिरिया उरवे रमणा 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 करुणालयने वरुवाय कदिरार कडले वरुवाय करुणालयने वरुवाय कदिरार कडले वरुवार उरुगंबडियार कुरुदि पोरुळे तरुणं तरुणं धरणी करुळवाय उरुगंबडियार कुरुदि पोरुळे तरुणं तरुणं धरणी करुळवाय रमणा 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 अडियारिदयाम्बुयने अरुणाडहने अभयम् अडियारिदयाम्बुयने अरुणाडहने अभयम् तुदियानिलये सुडर्मामणिये सुखनायकने अभयम् अभयम् तुदिया निलये सुधर्मामणिये सुखनायकने अभयम् अभयम् रमण 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 नमो रमण।
चल अरुणाचल 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 मोह से मन को ना कर घायल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल मोह से मन को ना कर घायल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल शोक भाग्य को डाल बदल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल शोक भाग्य को डाल बदल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल सब प्रश्नों का एक ही हल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल सब प्रश्नों का एक ही हल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल सब जीवों का हृदय कमल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल सब जीवों का हृदय कमल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल अहम अहम भज ज्ञान की पायल चल अरुणाचल अहम अहम भज ज्ञान की पायल चल अरुणाचल चल अरुणाचल ओढ़ले प्रेम व ज्ञान का चल अरुणाचल ओढ़ले प्रेम व ज्ञान का चल अरुणाचल 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 चल अरुणाचल।
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. I present to you a song written by Muruganar Swami, which praises Bhagavan. You are my mother, you are my father, you are everything, you are Achala, you are the medicine, you are everything for me. போற்றி வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி 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 அச்சலா போற்றி அந்தண போற்றி குசலமெஞான குறிசில் போற்றி பெருந்துயர் செய்யும் பிறவிப் பிணிக்கோர் மருந்தே போற்றி மணியே போற்றி போற்றி வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி 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 வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி போற்றி தெள்ளத் தெளிந்த சின்மய போற்றி உள்ளம் கவர்ந்த கள்வா போற்றி அருமையில் எளிய அழகே போற்றி எளிமையில் அரிய எழிலே போற்றி போற்றி வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி 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 வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி போற்றி அச்சா போற்றி அம்மா போற்றி அச்சாகிய நல்லறிவே போற்றி உயிரே போற்றி உடம்பே போற்றி உயிருடம்பல்லா உணர்வே போற்றி போற்றி வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி 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 வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி போற்றி அடியே போற்றி முடியே போற்றி அடிமுடியற்ற அனந்தா போற்றி மண்ணே போற்றி விண்ணே போற்றி மண்ணினும் விண்ணினும் ஆழ்வா போற்றி போற்றி வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி 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 வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி போற்றி வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி போற்றி வெங்கடரமணா போற்றி போற்றி. Namo Ramana. We will now have the reading and sharing from the book Forever is in the Now by Sri Nandakumarji.
Namo Ramana. In this, the book reading segment of our Saturday Satsang, we continue our readings from this work, Forever is in the Now, the timeless message of Sri Ramana Maharshi, edited and compiled by our founder president, Sri A.R. Natarajan ji. We have been reading first of the two letters from Sri Dileep Kumar Roy with the sage of the Holy Hill. Dileep Kumar Roy, of course, has been introduced in a simple manner, as is the practice in this introduction, as the author of books including Kumbha, 6 Illuminators of Modern India, and a long time inmate of Aurobindo Ashram. So we continue our reading. We had left off with a poem. So we begin with that poem briefly and then go on with our reading. You came in a pauper's garb and stayed to teach that world what only a beggar could impart, and offered a kingdom we could never reach by all our science, philosophy, and art. Someday a light shall dawn, and then we will know what you came to give, a king incognito. He left his mortal body in April 1950 after having suffered excruciating physical pain for 2 long years. One of his arms had become cancerous. The medical men did their best, but nothing availed. He died, but with the self-same radiant smile on his lips. Once the painful wound had to be prodded thoroughly. Declining an anesthetic, he stretched out his arm. His face remained serene. Not one groan issued from his lips. The doctor was amazed. Such was he. No wonder they called him Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. The modern man often enough denounces the mystic as a selfish seeker of personal salvation. There may indeed be some sadhus who belong to this category, but the major mystics have never been indifferent to the suffering of others. Sri Ramana Maharshi proved this once again by the great life he lived after his attainment. He was always available, always ready to help with his words, more with his silent spiritual presence. He was the soul of divine compassion, always giving, never asking anything for himself. No man who is selfish can attract such a band of devoted seekers around him. This is not the place to talk about his remarkable devotee, but I will end this tribute, the part 1, with a letter from one of his disciples, an Englishman, Major A.W. Chadwick. I was fascinated by his personality and wrote him a letter which I need not quote, as it will readily be inferred from his reply, which is dated October 11th, 1946. Dear Dileep, this is what A.W. Chadwick, Sadhu Arunachala, has written to Dileep Kumar Royji. Dear Dileep, it was kind of you to write. I feel diffident in answering your question, as I fear I have made or may make myself appear of some spiritual attainment, a thing to which I have no pretension. I am just a humble seeker with the same failings and same difficulties as everybody else. That all paths are extremely difficult, there can be no doubt. But how can it be otherwise? The ego, which has taken such tremendous pains to establish itself as a seemingly independent and self-sufficient entity, will fight to the last ditch before it will admit defeat and relinquish its claims. We can imagine the ditches dug out in the army. Till the last ditch is available for the one's own area, one will defend. The ego will defend its right to exist as separate from God, says A.W. Chadwick. But my motto has been persistence, and I think that by that victory is assured. The guru of a friend of mine, who passed away some years ago and was undoubtedly a jnani, used to tell him that if he desired self-realization sufficiently, he could not even die till he attained his goal. And in that is our hope. You asked me how long I had to persevere in solitude before I attained peace. Surely, peace is a thing which grows and is not, for the majority, attained in a flash once and for all. I do not speak of self-realization. The moment I came into the presence of my Guru 11 years ago, I found peace. My staying here was never premeditated. It was just something which had to be, in spite of myself. It was my true home. However, the pendulum swings. In time, the beats grow shorter and shorter until it comes to rest in the self. To expect anything else is to expect the impossible. It seems to me that the great thing is to follow one Guru and one path unwaveringly, and the goal is assured. For after all, the goal and the path are the same. The Chinese call both the way Tao. The way and path are called the way only. The way and the goal are called way only by Chinese as the Tao, the old spiritual approach there. But we become disheartened and impatient. These seem to be the two greatest obstacles to attainment. I'll read that again. But we become disheartened and impatient. These seem to be the two greatest obstacles to attainment. If we can only face up to these and go on in spite of everything and everybody, then there is absolutely no doubt as to the result. But how few of us can? May the Supreme Guru give us the necessary strength. I seem to have been very prolix and to have preached. The dictionary says prolix means too much words, too many words are used. I seem to have been very prolix and to have preached. I ask your forgiveness. Very cordially yours, A.W. Chadwick. The author Dileep Simha concludes with a single line. Glory to the Guru who can inspire such love and devotion in men of this caliber. That is the end of part 1. With the Sage of the Holy Hill, part 2 by Dileep Kumarji. We continue. Dileep Kumar Roy. I first heard of Sri Ramana Maharishi while I was a member of the Yoga Ashram of Sri Aurobindo. I asked him about the Maharishi, and he wrote back that he was a yogi of remarkable strength and attainments, and that his tapasya, Bhagavan's tapasya, had won glory for India. On another occasion, he characterized him as a Hercules among yogis. Hercules among the yogis. So I longed to pay a visit to Ramanashramam, situated at the foot of the hallowed Arunachala hill. When I arrived at the small house where the Maharishi lived, I felt a deep malaise, a sort of darkness inside. How could I hope to get peace and inspiration from him if I had failed to get it at the feet of my own Guru, who was surely no less great? Yet, I felt sincerely that I had done well in coming to seek inspiration from the great yogi who was venerated by spiritual aspirants of every category. At the same time, I wondered whether this was the proper frame of mind in which to seek peace from a multi-illuminate. I entered the room of the great sage in the afternoon. It was just a bare hall in which I found him reclining on a couch. A handful of devotees were sitting on the floor. Some were meditating while others were gazing wistfully at the sage, who sat stone still, staring in front at nothing at all, as was his wont. He never spoke unless somebody first spoke to him or asked a question. For 50 years, he had been living on this hill and felt no call to leave it. In the earlier years, he had lived in a cave on the hill for many years in silence. In the ashram, which had subsequently been built around him by a few of his devotees, he had now been living a singular life, blessing all but belonging to none, interested in everything but attached to nothing, answering questions but hardly ever asking any. He gave the impression of Shiva, the great god of compassion, who was there to give but not to ask anything of anybody, living a blissful, free and open life with no walls of ego to cabin the summit vision. I had indeed read what Paul Brunton had written about him and had heard a lot about his lovable ways from a dear friend of mine, Durai Swami, who had known him for years. Some other friends had told me that he had been living ever since his abandonment of worldly life in a state of Sahaja Samadhi. The Sahaja Samadhi, the writer puts in the brackets and describes in his own way. Ever since his abandonment of worldly life in a state, worldly life, he had been living ever since his abandonment of worldly life in a state of Sahaja Samadhi. The Sahaja Samadhi is described as super consciousness in the ordinary wakeful consciousness. Super consciousness in the ordinary wakeful consciousness. What I saw with my own eyes impressed me deeply. Though I find it far from easy to portray what I saw, or rather experienced. Here was a man who lived like a god, supremely indifferent to all that we worldlings clamor for without cease. Dressed in a bare kaupina, loincloth, he yet sat ensconced in a grandeur of plenary peace and egoless bliss, which we could but speculate upon, yet never fathom. Kings had come to him with all sorts of rich offerings, but in vain. He had blessed them, but never accepted any gifts. He said one day to a disciple with an ironic smile, as he pointed at the huge pandal which his devotees were building to honor him at the Golden Jubilee celebration 1946, Bhagavan is quoted, "Just fancy, they insist on erecting this for me when all I need is the shade of a tree to sit under." Modern man may criticize him for his lack of initiative and argue that humanity has little use for one who lives thus aloof and isolated. But was he isolated? He who radiated peace, which hundreds of visitors have experienced by just sitting near him in silence. Did not the lineaments of his serene face, his beautiful smile, his tranquil glance convey to all a message of liberation? Did he not blossom like a flower stemming from the earth, yet alien to all that was earthly? Did not his frail frame embody a strength that was not human? His life attests to an invisible anchorage which made him utterly secure and free from the last vestige of fear. Yes, as he told me later, the Maharishi put a premium on two things: inaccessibility to fear and to flattery, however subtle. I'll read that again. Yes, as he told me later, the Maharishi put a premium on two things: inaccessibility to fear and to flattery, however subtle. Once a snake passed over his body while he lay in his dark cave at night. His friend and attendant, a doctor who related this to me, jumped up as it passed over his chest. "Why, what is the matter?" The Maharishi asked him. "A snake," he answered. "I know," acquiesced the sage. "It passed over my body previously." "It did?" asked the doctor. "And how did you feel?" "Cool," came the rejoinder from the Maharishi, of course. Bhagavan says the passing of that snake was, it was very cool. About flattery, he told me this story. "A man may go very far," he said, "but not till he has traveled beyond the reach of all flattery can he be said to have arrived. Listen, there was once a rich man who wanted God. He gave up his family, home, comforts, everything, and repaired to a forest where he practiced untold austerities for years till he arrived at the golden gate. But alas, the portals did not open to his repeated knocking. He did not know why. One day, an old friend of his came upon him in the forest while he was meditating. When he opened his eyes, the friend fell at his feet in an ecstasy of adoration. 'Oh, blessed one, how great you are! How heroic your austerities and sacrifice! Accept my homage.' The holy man had indeed practiced all the austerities and made all the sacrifices attributed to him. Nevertheless, he was pleased when the other paid him homage. And that was why the golden gate had not opened to his knocking." Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. With Bhagavan's grace, we will continue the readings in the coming weeks. Namo Ramana.
We'll now have reading and self-enquiry session by Sri Dileep Simha.
You can start, sir. Tomorrow. You are in mute.
Namo Ramana. Am I audible? Dhyaye Sharada Chandra Sundara Mukham Ramrara Bindekshanam Bhakta Vishthavara Pradakaram Kaupina Mantrojvaram Swatmanandarasanubhutidivasham Sarvanavatyangakam Shrimantam Shri Ramanishwaram Guruvaram Yogasam Dhyasitam Dhyayet Shri Ramanishwaram Dhyayet Shri Ramanishwaram Dhyayet Shri Ramanishwaram Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahmamatram Yahamahami Sakshatatma Rupena Bhakti Hridaya Manasasvam Chimvata Mujjata Pavana Chalana Atmanishto Bhavatu. Namo Ramana. We will commence the Atma Vicharam by listening to Bhagavan's Upadesha. I will be reading from the book Guru Vachika Kovai from the chapter Investigation into the Truth. The topic is the greatness of the Guru. Verse 321. You may have acquired all the virtues and renounced all the vices. You may have renounced totally all your relationships and have no attachment. You may have completely performed all the many penances enjoined upon the virtues by the scriptures. But however great you may be by virtue of your intellect and accomplishments, will you attain the experience, the state of Kaivalyam, oneness, that is wholly bliss, until you obtain as a result of meritorious karma the good fortune of seeing the Gnana Guru. Repeat the verse. You may have acquired all the virtues and renounced all the vices. You may have renounced totally all your relationships and have no attachment. You may have completely performed all the many penances enjoined upon the virtuous by the scriptures. But however great you may be by virtue of your intellect and accomplishments, will you attain the experience, the state of Kaivalyam, oneness, that is wholly bliss, until you obtain, as a result of meritorious karma, the good fortune of seeing the Gnana Guru. It reminds me the starting of the Viveka Chudamani, where Shankaracharya talks about all the virtues that one should have for the liberty. And in that, one of the things is having the human body, having the inclination towards Gnana. Everything is talked about. But the most important part that he also emphasizes is the good fortune of having seen the Gnana Guru. So here Bhagavan is saying it is solely not by our own individual efforts that we would achieve that oneness. It is the grace which actually removes all the obstacles and makes us one with itself. It is the grace of the Sadguru. That is the real fortune of having seen such a Gnana Guru. And Bhagavan has appeared in the form for all of us. And has given us the Upadesha to inquire, no matter how many thoughts come, which may be intellectual, which may be from the scriptures, which may be based on our vasanas. He asks us to do only one thing, no matter what those thoughts are. He asks us to inquire to whom is this. Thereupon, we recognize that it is for me. And moment we inquire, who am I? And try to find the source of the I. What do we refer to as I? Then and there, that inquiry makes us one with the Gnana Guru who is in the heart as Aksharamanamalai, shining as I at all times. So, Bhagavan has given us the Atma Vichara to get in touch with him, with the inquiry, who am I? Every time we put this question and dive within, we should have no doubts that we are actually getting in touch with that Gnana Guru, the self, Aksharamanamalai, as I in all of us. With that, we have that greatness of having met the Gnana Guru and having established in our natural state the immense grace of Bhagavan, with which alone we have come to this most direct path. For the next 10 minutes, let us do Atma Vichara. Revathi, can you help me keep the time, please?
Namo Ramana. We will now have the sharing of Guru Stuti by Sri Venkatesh Deshpande ji.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviram Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Dhyanamoolam Gurur Murti, Pujamoolam Gurur Padam, Mantramulam Gurur Vakyam, Mokshamulam Gurur Kripaha, Mokshamulam Gurur Kripaha. Namo Ramana. We are doing Manana on Shankaradhigvijaya, which Bhagavan calls the Guru Stuti. So what did we do last? We did the verse number 5. The Vedas declare all this is Atman, with a view to show that all this effect world has no existence apart from their cause, the Atman. Just as the golden bracelets, head ornaments, etc. are forms of gold, so too is the Atman, the Supreme Spirit, the material cause of everything. Apart from him, the Supreme Cause, nothing exists. And thou art that Supreme Cause. So we will do Manana on verse number 6 today. Request Sapna to kindly chant that, please.
चाहमत्र वर्ष्माणि भामि सोऽसौ योऽसौ विभातिरविमण्डले सोऽहमिति वेदावादिनो व्यतिहारतो यदा ध्यापयन्ति यत्नतस्तत्त्वमसि तत्त्वम् यश्चाहमत्र वर्ष्माणि भामि सोऽसौ योऽसौ विभातिरविमण्डले सोऽहमिति वेदावादिनो व्यतिहारतो यदा ध्यापयन्ति यत्नतस्तत्त्वमसि तत्त्वम् यश्चाहमत्र वर्ष्माणि.
Thank you, Sapna. So what does it say, the 6th verse? The truth has been forcefully proclaimed by the scriptures in such texts as he who is in the sun is in man. He who is in the sun is in man. He who shines in the sun shines in the right eye, etc. That thou art. So that which shines, another interpretation, that which shines in this body, that is in the sun, and that which is in the sun, that is within this body too. The knowers of the Veda try in this way to establish the truth of the unitary Atman, and verily thou art that Atman. So let's try and understand, this Mahavakya is there, thou art that. Let's try and get a perspective of this, because in all these Guru Stutis, final statement is thou art that. So I picked up a understanding from Swami Shivananda, and I'll read what he has to say. When the Upanishads address you and declare thou art that, you should be very clear in your mind what the term thou means. Then alone, when this is grasped with clarity and subtle receptivity, can you truly and immediately understand what that connotes, how this relationship of oneness is possible. If you think by the term thou, the Upanishads mean you are listening with your ears and trying to understand what your mind and grasp with your intellect, then the very purpose of the declaration is thwarted. I'll read that again. This is very important. If you think that by the term thou, the Upanishads mean you who are listening with your ears and trying to understand with your mind and grasp with your intellect, then the very purpose of the declaration is thwarted. If to you the term thou still seems to mean a physical entity, that means that you are still identifying yourself with the body, mind, and intellect. As long as you are still in that state of understanding yourself, the Upanishads have failed in their mission, for they are not referring to this thou. So, very important thing. So, is being said is, what do you mean by thou? That thou, what do we look at is very, very important. When the Upanishads say thou, they are not using human language, but are trying to convey a divine experience. They are neither using Sanskrit, English, Hindi, or any other language. They are declaring an experience that is imponderable, beyond the knowing of the mind or the grasping of the intelligence, whence all speech turns back with the mind, not reaching it. So, if I, instead of trying to understand the term thou upon that level where mind and speech cannot enter, and they came back unable to comprehend it, and you persist in taking it to mean a physical psychological level, then the inner implication of thou has not yet dawned upon you. They are not saying that Mr. So and so is Brahman. Again, I'll read this. They are not saying that Mr. So and so is Brahman. That is absurdity. So we always say, oh, he is Brahman, he is a Jnani. What Swami Shivananda writes here is that is absurdity. Therefore, you first have to understand what is thou is that they are referring to when they declare that thou art that. They are not referring to you that is seen, the you with a name and form. They are referring to the unseen you. They are not referring to anything whatsoever that is seen. They are referring to you as the hidden, unknown seer of all things seen, the knower of all things known. In that dimension, thou, the hidden seer of all things seen, art that which alone prevails. That world, that verily is your source, your Alpha and Omega you, the unseen you, who may know the world, but the world can never know you. That's a very important fact. Who may know the world, but the world can never know you. Even your father and mother cannot know you unless they themselves have already understood the true meaning of thou art that. There is a need for long study, the need for sitting at the feet of a knower of Brahman and listening to what he has to say about Brahman, about Maya, about yourself, and about your relationships. You must listen, reflect, and meditate. They say Rome was not built in a day. God is not understood even in one lifetime. What to speak of a day? Yet they say he can be realized within a twinkling of an eye. How can we reconcile these statements? If a dry matchstick is struck against a rough surface, it will immediately burst into flame. But you cannot do that with a toothpick or a cake of soap. Consider the amount of work and the number of steps that go into the manufacture of a match head. Thus, when the interior of a seeker is ready, fully prepared, through years of study, listening to the truth, and pondering over what has been studied. Ultimately, when the Upanishads declare to you that the art that you know perfectly well what is implied, what is meant by thou. I am the unchanging fourth state of consciousness, calmly witnessing the ever recurring cycle of waking, dream, and sleep. I am that I am. Awareness is my name. It is this meaning that the Upanishads are trying to address. They say that it is the subtlest of all subtle things. You must make your consciousness attain this subtlety. If it is still involved in duality, in likes and dislikes, joy and grief, and identification with the body, how can that level be obtained? One sage said, grasping this truth is like chewing on steel peanuts and digesting them. It is not a little thing. There is need for humility, for clarity of thought, for clearly understanding what this truth is and where you stand. Then humbly, with patience, diligence, and fortitude, try to move towards it and keep on moving. Make your life this slow movement, never allowing anything to divert you. This is sadhana. This is spiritual life. This is yoga. This is abhyasa, practice. This is meditation, dwelling on it, contemplating on it all 24 hours of the day. Meditation is throughout the day and night, even when you were working or serving or in a crowd. If the meditation stops, your sadhana has stopped and your progress has stopped. You may be alone inside your meditation room, but in thought, you may be in the middle of the world. Therefore, this is not play. It is not an ordinary thing. It requires humility and clear understanding of your real identity. Then, a positing of the question of thou is not ridiculous. Let us fully understand. Let us first access our present state and see where we are. Then let us do all that is needful to reach where we ought to be. If we want to understand reality, if we want to grasp the truth. So this is what Swami Shivananda writes about thou art that. So it's very important. We as devotees, first of all, to know where to go, first of all, you must know where you are. This is a fundamental important thing. So if you're in Bangalore and you want to go to Mysore, first of all, you should know that you are in Bangalore. If you think I am in Tiruvannamalai and I want to go to Mysore, then it's a different route altogether. So first, each one of us, when we do take a stock of who we really are and where we really are in our sadhana, then we will know where to go. And where to go is also within only, it's not without. So important thing is once we know where we are, then we know where to go. And then when we know where to go is, you can cheat the whole world. Oh, I'm a jnani. You can cheat the whole world that I'm established in the self. But you know that where you are. So that's what Swami Shivananda say. Even your mother and father cannot know who you really are, because if they are not established in the self, and you, for example, you are established in the self, they will not know your situation. It happened with Bhagwan. Look at the Bhagwan situation. When he was established in the self, his family could not recognize his state the way he was. So later on, when Mother Aragamal came to Arunachala and realized Bhagwan was in a different state of being, that's when she realized, oh, there is something that is different from where I am. So important thing is understand is we should not be attached with the body, mind, intellect. We should be attached with that Satchidananda Atman, which is the only reality in all the four states. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the sharing of Devikalottara Jnana Vichara Padalam by Dr.Kalarani Rengasamy.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. அருணாச்சலம் என அகமே நினைப்பவர் அகத் அறத்தை வேறறுப்பாய் அருணாச்சலம். Namo Ramana to all. With the abundant grace of Bhagwan, we are meditating on Devi Kalotra Jnana Vichara Padalam, very graciously given to us by Bhagwan in Tam. And in the last satsang we saw, whatever we see in the world and aspire for has some duality. Happiness, sorrow, love, hatred, like, dislike, and so on. ஆச்சரியம் தொந்தம் என்று சொல்லப்படுமா? We cannot feel something which we feel good for us only and say no to the opponent. We have to experience that also. When come over all these duality, paravastu can be realized. Advandam vida param tondrume. And the next stanza, Bhagwan says, Udalai viragattu olithirukkai புத்தி உடையவரார் செய்ய ஒண்ணாதே. உடலை விராகரத்து ஒத்திருக்கை புத்தி உடையவரார் செய்ய ஒண்ணாதே. After so many words, we got this human form. அருணகிரிநாதர் Gurugli says, எழுகடல் மணலை அளவிடினும் அதிகம் எனது இதர அவதாரம். It's very easy to count the sand that's laying in the beach. More than that, I have taken my birth and I got this human form. And due to prarabdha karma, prarabdha vina, we get this birth. And one gets this birth and the body has to experience the karma's fruit. That is its main aim. As it is mandatory to experience our karma's phalam through this body, Bhagavan says a knowledgeable person should not hate the body. One should not try to destroy this body. Once I tell you an example, there was a great king called Sikidwajan and his wife Chudalai. Both were practicing Atmavitta. Chudalai got realized earlier. So, the king went inside to the deep forest and was practicing, doing penance. But there was no progress. He could feel no progress. Then a Muni crossed him, saw him, and inquired about his spiritual progress. He said, I really don't know what to do. I actually renounced everything. Muni asked, what have you renounced? See, I left my country. Now this forest is my country. I renounced my beautiful palace. Now see this small hut is my palace. Then the Muni said, so you have not renounced anything. Can you say that your country is in the form of forest and the palace is in the form of a hut? Then what should I do? Oh, great one, please tell me. Should I not be in one place? Okay, let me not stay here. I will walk and stay in different places. And he started walking. Now the Kumbhamnivar asked him, how are you going to walk? With my legs only. Oh, is it? Then you have not renounced your body also. You have something yours. Mamaharat is there. Oh, is that so? Then, if I perish and destroy this body, there will be nothing left, and to be called as mine is not. And without waiting for Muni's reply, he made a fire on the ground, climbed on a tree, and was about to drop his body into the fire. Now Muni said, oh, stop. Now tell me, when you jump into this fire, what will happen? I will die. My body will perish. Okay, then what will happen? What will remain? My ash will remain. So even after your body perishes, your ash will remain. You are saying, isn't it? Then also your ahankara will not get perished. So, it is not necessary that one has to destroy one's body for realization. Bhagavan says, let the body experience its karma phala, and you be aloof from that. You don't experience that. An instance happened in Bhagavan's life itself. Once Bhagavan, out of pain, was lamenting. A great devotee Chadwick, when crossing the hall, heard this and later asked Bhagavan, for a jnani, will there be any pain? I don't think so. There will be no pain. Then why I heard Bhagavan lamenting? Bhagavan said, the body was going through and experiencing the prarabdha karma. I have nothing to do with it. So in this terms also Bhagavan says, a knowledgeable person will never hate his body. Udalai viragattu vilittirukkai buddhi udayavarai cheyya onnade. Because till the jiva's prarabdha karma persists, it will be in the body only. Until it gets over, the prana will not go out. It will be staying in the body. After the prarabdha karma is experienced, finished by the body, any amount of persuasion will not going to help to stay back in the world. Once, an old lady was, her time was over, but he persuaded Yama, oh great one, I have taken only 2 dosas. Normally, I will have 3. Please allow me to have that 1 more dosa. He did not listen to her request and threw the pasak kaire around her neck and pulled him to himself. This is Ishvara Niyati. Each one of the jiva himself experience his prarabdha karma. There is no transferring business here. God will be only a sakshi residing inside. Anis who are then aware of this fact that everything that is happening is out of Ishvara Chitta, Ishvara Icha, he has no karma left out to be performed by him for himself. Tanmaya Dhanarku, Yenna Ura Yetchadarku, what is there to perform? So, there is no expectation. He just watches what is happening because he does not have a mind to think over. Once Bhagavan was ill and any amount of medication was not curing him, a lady devotee profusely cried and said with tears in her eyes, Bhagavan, why don't you cure yourself? Bhagavan said, for that I must have a mind to think over and I must think that I must get cured. Inga manasini enga vachu vaazhradhu. That is Bhagavan's words. Where is the mind here? If even a little piece of mind is left over, Emhan says, there will be no peace of mind. If even a little piece of mind is left over, there will be no peace of mind. So, for realized jnanis has no work to do because they don't have mind and nothing to think over. And because he needs nothing. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the sharing of Ramana Chatvarimshat by Sri Ujwal Jagadeesh.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Duram yahi kuvada dharma vrishate neta param panguta durbrante भुवनं जयीः परितो वर्धस्व संसत्सतां सोदर्येण समन्वितो भुवमिमां प्राप्तो गुरुग्रामणीः शूरान्तपुरनेत्रविभ्रमहरो देवो भवानीसुतः रमणाय लोकगुरवे नमः रमणाय लोकगुरवे नमः दूरसरिकुवादवे धर्मवृषभ कुण्टದೆ ಸ್ಥಿರವಾಗಿ ನಿಲ್ಲಲಿದೆ ದುರ್ಭ್ರಾಂತಿಯು ಭುವನವ ಬಿಡಲಿ ಸುಜನರ ಸಂಖ್ಯೆ ವರ್ಧಿಸಲಿ ಸೋದರನ ಕೂಡಿ ಭುವಿಗಿಳಿಯುತಿಹನು ಗುರು ಶ್ರೇಷ್ಠನು ಸೂರನ ಮಡದಿಯರು ಕಂಡ ವಿಲಾಸ ಹರಿದ ದೇವನು ಭವಾನಿ ಸುತನು ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಲೋಕ ಗುರುವಿಗೆ ನಮನ ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಲೋಕ ಗುರುವಿಗೆ ನಮನ. We are meditating on the 20th verse of Ramana Chatvarimshat written by Ganapati Muni. In the earlier verse, Ganapati Muni was requesting Bhagavan Ramana, who is none other than the Skanda who has come in the human form, to come quickly and save the world. And Ramana, as if nodding his head and smiling, agrees to descend on earth with his brother Ganapati. And this news Ganapati Muni is spreading to the whole world, and he makes a ghosha saying, the lion of Dharma is coming. So, O Kuvada, O senseless debate and discussions, run away from this world, because the bull of Dharma, which is limping and which is lame, is now going to stand on all its four legs. And O Durbranti, the illusion, the time has come for you to leave this bhuvana, this world, because the Sujana, the good people, the virtuous people, their number is going to raise. Because that Skanda who killed the Surapadman, poetically Ganapati Muni says, he who destroyed the beautiful sight of Surapadman that was being seen by his wives in his Antapura, that came to an end by the destruction of this demon Surapadman. That killer of Surapadman, the son of Bhavani, he is coming down to earth with his brother Ganapati, says Ganapati Muni. This verse is like as if Ramana is doing this ghosha that he is entering this world. And in one of our dance ballet, Ramana Leela, this ghosha is done by Ramana at the time of his birth. And this special instance of a blind midwife who was helping Alagammal in her delivery, as soon as this baby was born, when the procession of Ardra Darshana, the Natarajan Murti, had just finished the procession around the lanes of Tiruchuli, and the Shiva was re-entering the Bhuminatha temple. At that moment, at 1 a.m. on 30th December 1879, a cry was heard of the baby, and with that cry, there was another cry of a blind midwife who was helping Alagammal. She told, Alagu, Alagu, I see light. These blind eyes are seeing light everywhere. This is not an ordinary child. It is the light of the Supreme who has taken birth in your womb, said that blind lady. And that blind lady in our dance ballet, Ramanalila, sings the songs where she says, Belake bandide taye, Belake bandide, Muddu putta daniyali, Ananda nanda 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 nanda, Ananda belaka tandena, ಎಂದು ಘೋಷಿಸುತ್ತ ಬಂದಿದೆ ಬಂದಿದೆ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ಬಂದಿದೆ. Oh Mother Alagammal, the light has come. And what is this light crying out and coming? It is telling that I am the light of supreme bliss, Ananda. I am that light, as if it is doing this Ghoshana, this announcement. This baby has come, and this baby is none other than the light. We know that Ramana starts the Who Am I compilation with the notion that we are all searching for happiness, because happiness is our own true nature. What we are seeking, that happiness is what we are. To announce this truth to the whole world that we are truly happiness, Ramana came in the form of that child who was none other than the light. Chanda chanda pahadadi kattalaya nodeyuta bandide bandide belake bandide. And what is the Gosha that this child is doing? The child is telling that if one spark of light is seen, then the darkness which has accumulated for ages, it just vanishes in a trice, as if this spark of light has come to kick away the darkness which represents the ignorance, which represents our false notion that we are this body, mind and intellect. Ramana, who is the light, has come into our heart to dispel this darkness by kicking this darkness away from the world. That light has come as your baby. Belake bandide, komala kiru karagalali, ಬೆಳಕ ತುಂಬಿ ಎಲ್ಲೆಡೆ 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 ಚೆಲ್ಲುತ್ತ ಬಂದಿದೆ ಬಂದಿದೆ ಬೆಳಕೆ ಬಂದಿದೆ. That little child which with its small soft lotus-like hands, it has come to fill its hand with the light, and that light of knowledge, he has come to spread it everywhere and make it available to every true seeker who come. Ramana, who is none other than the light of the Supreme, that light which shines in every heart as I, has come in the human form to reveal that supreme bliss is our true nature, and to take away all darkness and fill us with the supreme knowledge. We salute to that Ramana who is light. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We'll now have the sharing of Vishwanatha Swami's Ramana Ashtottaram by Dr. Sarada.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self, manifest as Ramana, we are meditating in this part of the satsang on the Ramana Ashtottaram, Ashtottara Shatanamavali, composed by Vishwanatha Swami. And the names of Bhagavan are composed to provide an insight into, or are a string of names which form a beautiful necklace of Bhagavan's life, or Ramana Charitram. So we are on the Nama Pituradeshata Shona Shailam Praptaya Namaha. Bhagavan has come to Arunachala. By the very command of Arunachala, Bhagavan has reached Arunachala. He has reported to Arunachala, saying, Father, I have come. He has been invited to shave his head. He has done that, and he has thrown away everything that belonged to him at that point of time. We also meditated a bit on the reasons why he had thrown away even the sweets offered to him by a devout lady. But the real baseline, if we look at it, is that it is complete renunciation. He threw away everything that belonged to him. The hair was already shaven to indicate sannyasa. Sannyasa is technically the fourth ashrama which follows after brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha. It is the ashrama of renunciation, and ochre robes are donned. But more important than the donning of the ochre robes is the giving up of everything. In fact, the ritual of sannyasa indicates that the earlier person is dead and gone. Because of this, in fact, when a person is married, his wife would never allow him to take sannyasa because it's equivalent to her becoming a widow, her losing her husband. It is a new birth which happens after sannyasa. Because of this, Adi Shankara persuaded his mother to allow him to take sannyasa, saying that if the crocodile eats me up, I am dead and gone in any case. A crocodile has caught hold of my leg and I would be dead quite soon. However, if you allow me to take sannyasa, then that is equivalent to death. So that death will replace my death in the jaws of a crocodile, O mother. So this death is the death to give new life. In some cases, people take what is called apat sannyasa. If they are at the point of death, they take sannyasa, and then it is said that they get a new lease of life because it's equivalent to a new birth. Therefore, everything that belongs to them is given up. In another sense, it is a transcendence of all rituals which one is conjoined to do as a brahmachari and as a grihastha. There are certain norms to be followed. A brahmachari has to follow certain norms. A grihastha has to follow certain norms according to the scriptures. So there is total freedom from the need to perform any of these rites. That is also one of the key points in sannyasa. And there is a ritual which counteracts all the other rituals or supersedes all the other rituals and makes the person completely free. In this sense, everything that belongs to one earlier, and in this sense, the sacred thread is also discarded symbolically as the giving up of all rituals. Because of this, Bhagavan naturally had to throw away everything that belonged to him at that point of time. As he would tell Rangan later, the old Venkatraman was dead and gone long back. The old Venkatraman actually had died in that moment at Madurai on the 17th of July 1896, when he was, as Vishwanatha Swami says, when the Mahashakti Nipata happened, when he faced and conquered death. In that moment, it had actually happened. But externally, the total renunciation happened on the 1st of September 1896, when Bhagavan came to Arunachala, reported to the Father. With that, the last duty that he was to perform, the duty of taking the journey, making the journey to Arunachala, even that had been completed. The last job had been completed. The last task had been completed in accordance with the Father's command. Pituradeshataha. So the last command had been fulfilled. Now there was nothing further to do. There was nothing further to hold on to. So he threw away everything, and since he had crossed over the need for all rituals, he did not even choose to have the ritual bath that is taken after shaving one's head. But in the Leela of Arunachala, all the norms are protected. All the rules, all the rituals are also blessed, even as the transcendence is most blessed. But the path is also blessed. Every part of the path is blessed. And that's why the head shaving also. Otherwise, why should Bhagavan's head be shaven? Need not be shaven. He could have just remained as he was, because he was in any case the greatest sannyasi. Bhagavan says in Ramana Gita, Sannyaso nirmalam jnanam na kashayo na mundanam. Sannyasa means the purest knowledge. Nirmalam jnanam na kashayo. It is not the ochre robe, na mundanam. It is not the shaving of the head either. However, Bhagavan did submit to his head being shaven, and in much later years at Sri Ramanashramam, when a regular routine came into place, then every Paurnami, like every other sannyasi, Bhagavan would have his head shaven by the barber Natarajan. So that process started on that day, and we saw how it rained and the blessing of the rain to the earth. We saw that how the whole earth rejoiced at the coming of the Emperor of Jnana to Arunachala. Muni says, Kathaya nijaya kalusham harata karuna nidhina arunashailajusha. It is, Mother Earth was filled with joy at the arrival of Bhagavan to Arunachala, because the purpose of every being on earth was going to be fulfilled by this arrival of the young lad here on the 1st of September. So in that joy, as the earth rejoiced, the heavens also rejoiced, and it rained. Of course, the young boy was cold, but he tried to take shelter in one of the houses in the road next to the temple. He says, But in the middle of the night, he heard voices, he heard somebody coming out, and he felt shy and he ran back into the temple. And the temple was where he would stay for several months thereafter. Different parts of the temple he stayed. And the bhiksha had to be given to him. The sannyasi lives on alms. And what Bhagavan says, what was the first bhiksha provided by Arunachaleshwara? Bhagavan recalls this bhiksha with so much of love, with so much of joy. He always says that nothing can equal that. Why? Because it was given to him by Arunachaleshwara himself. That is the pure love of Bhagavan for Arunachala. The immense love. That love which is an overflow of the abundance of the self in which he was always established. So he calls Arunachala Arul Niraivana Amudakkadale. Amudakkadal, the abundance of bliss. And he also says Anburu Arunachala, the very form of love is Arunachala. And that love, when there is love, how beautiful everything would look. How amazing everything would taste. And it is an expression of that love that Bhagavan found in the first bhiksha which he got. That was given to him by a sage who was maintaining a vow of silence. Bhagavan did not maintain a vow of silence, but he remained silent. He says there was no need to speak, so he did not speak. There did not arise any need to speak. He did not maintain any vow whatsoever, but he just remained immersed in bliss. Shamala Ramachandran, one of the old devotees of Bhagavan, she says, Bhagavan's immersion in the self and apparently the tapas which he was performing, which would be the next nama, Tapomayaya Namaha, was so spontaneous, so natural. So he was there. And the food was given by different people. Bhagavan was asked later, what about food in those days, Bhagavan? And he says food was forthcoming, but when there is no tenant, no rent needs to be paid. When there was no sense of the body itself most of the time, then where is the question of hunger or thirst or any other need for the body? But then that was the bhiksha provided to him. There was this Mauna Swami who indicated to his disciples that some food should be given to this young boy, then seated in the 1,000-pillared hall, the Ayiram Kal Mandapam, near the entrance of the Arunachaleshwara temple. As we go into the main entrance, the eastern entrance, the Rajagopuram, on the right we find this 1,000-pillared hall, and which is a hallmark of many of the big temples, of the grand and great temples of Tamil Nadu. And in this 1,000-pillared hall, at that time, the young lad was seated, and the Mauni Swami, he indicated to his disciples. And what did the disciples have to offer to the young boy? They had some old rice, very old rice, maybe 3 days, 4 days old, which was, of course, that means it was soaked in water, and it was in a slightly rusted tin, and that was the vessel in which this rice was there. And it had, because it was soaked for so many days, each grain had bloated so much. It was, Bhagavan says, each grain was huge in size, each grain of rice, and at the bottom was a piece of very dry pickle of some kind, probably lemon pickle, dry, despite being at the bottom of the water. And that was the meal which Arunachaleshwara provided to Bhagavan, to his son, to his very dear son, to show to the entire world not only the love, the beauty of Bhagavan's love for Arunachala, but to show the grandeur of the state of self-knowledge, which in its all-enveloping bliss would reduce all else to absolute insignificance. And that is why there is joy, joy, joy in every moment of the Ramana Charitram. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the chanting of Aksharamanamalai by Srimati Radha and Vallabh.
अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचला अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचला ओंकार பொருள் ஒப்புயவில்லோய் உனையாரறிவார் அருணாச்சலா ஔவை போல் எனக்குன் அருளை தந்தனையாடுவதும் கடன் அருணாச்சலா கண்ணுக்கு கண்ணாய் கண்ணின்றி காணுனை காணுவதெவர் பார் அருணாச்சலா காந்தம் இரும்பு போல் கவர்ந்தென்னை விடாமல் கலந்தென்னோடிருப்பார் அருணாச்சலா கிரியுருவாகிய கிருபை கடலே கிருப்பை கூர்ந்தருளுவாய் அருணாச்சலா கீழ்மேலெங்கும் கிளரொளி மணியன் கீழ்மையை பாஷை அருணாச்சலா குற்றமுற்றரு தென்னை குணமாய் பணித்தாள் குரு உருவாயொளி அருணாச்சலா கூர்வாட்கண்ணியர் கொடுமையில் படாதருள் கூர்ந்தென்னை சேர்ந்தருள் அருணாச்சலா கெஞ்சியும் வஞ்சியாய் கொஞ்சமும் இறங்கில்லை அஞ்சல் என்றே அருள் அருணாச்சலா கேடாதளிக்கும் உன் கேடில் புகழை கேடு செய்யாத அருள் அருணாச்சலா கையினை கனி உன் மெய்ரசம் கொண்டு உவகை வெறி கொள அருள் அருணாச்சலா கொடியிட்டடியரை கொல்லுனை கட்டி கொண்டெங்கன் வாழ்வேன் அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ 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 அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சலம் வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி அக்ஷரமணமாலை வாழி. நமோ ரமணா.
Namo Ramana. We will conclude today's satsang with the Ashtottara puja. The Ashtottara puja will be performed by Sri Dileep Simha at his altar. The Ashtottaram chanting will be done by Sri Vaibhavji and Prarthana and Uma Shripati and Ashwini Balaji. Namo Ramana.
नमो रमण. भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्री रमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्मि मात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहारितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि। ॐ महासेन महंसेन जाताय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः। ॐ गुरवे नमः। ॐ अखण्ड संविदाकाराय नमः। ॐ महोजसे नमः। ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः। ॐ जगद्दितावताराय नमः। ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः। ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः। ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः। ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः। ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः। ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः। ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः। ॐ श्रीमद्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः। ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः। ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः। ॐ तीव्राय नमः। ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः। ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः। ॐ पितुरादेशतशोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः। ॐ तपोमयाय नमः। ॐ उदासीनाय नमः। ॐ महायोगिने नमः। ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः। ॐ कुशाग्रधिये नमः। ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंयम्याय नमः। ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः। ॐ सवित्रे नमः। ॐ स्थिराय नमः। ॐ कपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः। ॐ पुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः। ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः। ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः। ॐ चूर्णिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः। ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्षुभावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजतशलाकृतये नमः। ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्य निवाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः।
ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्रीशोणाचलहृद्भूतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्छिन्नसंशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः ॐ विनताय नमः ॐ विनुताय नमः ॐ विप्राय नमः ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः ॐ हृच्छान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः ॐ स्मरणात् बन्धमोचकाय नमः ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः ॐ शोणाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः ॐ गुहाय नमः ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः ॐ देवतमाय नमः ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः ॐ सेनान्ये नमः ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थाणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्या जनिं प्राप्य तत् दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः हृन्निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्येकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शनसुखमङ्गलमुखसकलजीवहितसम्मुख ब्रह्मसङ्गिये सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानन्दपुष्ट परममहर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡುತ್ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಘಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ. बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।
जय